Welcome and welcome back to Maps Tutoring, where we look at key English exam skills. In today's video, we are going to be looking at evaluating, and we're continuing with our extract from A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Today's question is, in this extract, there is an attempt to portray Scrooge as a villain. Evaluate how successfully this is achieved. This question is asking you to use all the skills from question 1, 2 and 3, but adding evaluation to that. Those skills being deduction, inference, and analyzing writers' techniques. We have covered these in previous videos, and if you have missed those, you can go back and watch them now. So what does evaluation actually mean? It means making a judgment or giving your opinion. In the exam, it's not just saying what you think, it's adding an informed opinion to your analysis. For Edexcel, the mark scheme for the evaluation question refers to the following: settings, ideas, themes, events, and you can use the acronym CITE to help you remember those. So you should be evaluating the above. You may analyze language and structure, but only in support of an evaluation. The mark scheme gives these as guidance, not as a limitation. So I'm also going to include characters, which adds C to our acronym CITE. Setting can refer to the place. So for example, a country, a city, street, a house, a room, indoors or outdoors. It can also refer to the weather. It can refer to the time of day, a specific year, or a specific time in history. All of these can have an impact on the narrative and the reader. Character can refer to the way the writer shapes the protagonist, which is the main character, the antagonist, the villain, and any other characters. So again, remember, this is a bonus one. It's not in the exam mark scheme, but you can refer to this as well. Ideas can be concepts, lessons, or even the main aim of the text. For example, in the fairy tale Cinderella, the main idea of the text could be said to be that kindness is rewarded, whereas cruelty and selfishness are punished, because Cinderella is kind and humble throughout the story, and she gets to marry the prince at the end, whereas her stepmother and stepsisters are punished because they have to watch her live the life they always wanted, and this is all because of their cruelty towards Cinderella. Themes do have a close link with ideas, as they can refer to the recurrence or the repetition of concepts, lessons, and symbols. They can also refer to a topic or subject matter of the story. So for example, in Cinderella, a theme could be good versus evil. Events can refer to anything interesting or significant that happens in the narrative. You do not need to write about each of these, only the ones that you judge as effective in a particular text. Aim for at least 4 paragraphs because you do have half an hour for this question. The other very important aspect of this question is that you need to use adverbs that show that you are making a judgment. SPECS is a useful acronym that you can use to help you remember some of these. Successfully, powerfully, effectively, creatively, skillfully, all of these are examples of appropriate adverbs you can use. You don't have to limit yourself to these only. Other ones that you could use are interestingly, convincingly, aptly, and I'm sure you can think of lots more, but these are just examples to name a few. How much have you remembered so far? What do the below acronyms stand for? So pause the video and have a go now. How many did you remember? The answers are now on the screen. So remember, these are to guide you, not to limit you, meaning if you cover them, you will be able to get excellent grades, but it does not mean that you cannot think of any other things to analyze and evaluate for yourself, or that you cannot consider other adverbs to show that you are making a judgment. This is an evaluation question. However, you may also incorporate writer's techniques, but only in support of a judgment. So once you have made a judgment using a judgment adverb, you may also evaluate the use of techniques. If you analyze techniques without making a judgment, you cannot get more than 6 out of the 15 marks available for this question. So it's very, very important that you analyze techniques only in support of a judgment. The question is about Scrooge being a villain. With this in mind, as we read, consider how it opens. what things change, if at all, as it develops in the middle, and if it ends with a completely different atmosphere compared to how it starts. Is Scrooge presented more or less as a villain as the text progresses? Consider this as we read the text. But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded parts of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance, was what the knowing ones call nuts to Scrooge. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts and stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warm them. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. It had not been light all day, and candles were flaring at the windows of the neighbouring offices like ruddy smears upon the palpable brown air. The fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole, and was so dense without that although the court was of the narrowest, the houses opposite were mere phantoms. To see the dingy cloud come drooping down, obscuring everything, one might have thought that nature lived hard by and was brewing on a large scale. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who, in a dismal little cell beyond a sort of tank, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room, and so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of strong imagination, he failed. Can you see any examples of effective use of setting, character, ideas, themes, or events? Look for an example of each of these. Pause and have a go now. Did you get any of the following? I have provided a key for each type of example from sight: settings, character, ideas, themes, events. So I'm going to go through some of them, not necessarily all of them, and if there are any that I don't discuss that I may have not highlighted, please feel free to leave a comment with your contribution. So let's start with the opening paragraph. And with my first highlighted example there, we could say that Scrooge's lack of care for others is apparent in that opening, and that effectively portrays him as a villain. I have also highlighted in that first paragraph warning all human sympathy away as an idea, which can also be a theme, and you could say that the idea of Scrooge being a misanthrope is being established successfully there to contribute to his portrayal as a villain. The other characters included in this extract, they also contribute to this portrayal, but through contrast, you can say, particularly the clerk towards the end of the extract. In this final paragraph, we can also observe a theme emerge through Dickens' vocabulary choices, and I've highlighted that theme in blue. This being the theme of poverty and lack. This also contributes to the negative portrayal of Scrooge because of his unsympathetic and miserly attitude. So again, you may have observed different things from what I have discussed, and if you have, please leave those in the comments. The next thing I would advise you consider are the writer's techniques, because now you have established an evaluation of settings, characters, ideas, themes, and events. So has the writer used any techniques that you can use to support your evaluation? Pause and have a go now. The answers are now on the screen. So as you can see, there's an example of a rhetorical question, a verb, pathetic fallacy, contrast, and the semantic field of lack or limitation. So you can pause and have a look at the answers that are on the screen. Now we have everything we need to practice our exam question in an extended response. So a reminder of the question. In this extract, there is an attempt to portray Scrooge as a villain. Evaluate how successfully this is achieved. Write 2 paragraphs. Try to answer the question and include the following. So firstly, a judgment about the character's use of sight, which is settings, characters, ideas, themes, events, in the opening of the extract. A quote to support your judgment, evaluation of any techniques used in that quote, and then an explanation that links with the keyword villain in the question. And for the second paragraph, it's the exact same thing, but you are writing about something from the middle of the extract. You have 30 minutes to respond to this question in the exam. See if you can write 2 paragraphs in 15 minutes. Pause and have a go now. I hope you've managed to have a go at your own response. We are now going to go through an example. The text opens with an effective characterization of Scrooge with the rhetorical question, but what did Scrooge care? Suggesting he has a disregard for others and is perhaps quite hostile, as his demeanour is warning all human sympathy to keep away. The verb warning has connotations of danger and establishes the idea that people may be in danger of harm if they get too close to Scrooge. Through this, Dickens successfully portrays Scrooge as villainous in the opening of the extract. His voluntary solitude is a key theme that characterizes Scrooge as a villain. The fact that he warns all human sympathy pits him quite dramatically against all that might be considered humane, making him a villain not simply against people, but against that which may be considered good in humanity. The adverb all powerfully highlights Scrooge's indiscriminate dismissal of people and invites the reader to question the reason for his current state. As the extract progresses, Dickens develops Scrooge's portrayal as an unsympathetic misanthrope using contrast. The people in the court outside wheezing up and down contrast Scrooge, who is busy in his counting house, as Scrooge seems quite aloof to their suffering, hearing them but unmoved, absorbed with the business of his work. Furthermore, Dickens skillfully uses the fog to symbolize his inability to sympathize and to create an apt setting that embodies his intimidating nature. The intensity of the fog is described as so dense, and this reflects Scrooge's impenetrable persona and skillfully builds on the negative image established in the opening. As you can see there, I've started a concluding paragraph, and I'll leave that to you to attempt. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've made it this far in the video, give the video a like, give yourself a round of applause, and we'll see you in the next one.